They make it pretty obvious that this person is Punjabi, and then as soon as they show them on the camera, the music starts playing. Like,
I know.
and then it's just like, oh, Paji, oh, you're not Paji, and then I was like, come on, man,
It's so
we're not all
annoying.
like that.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves with Bollywood. Every time a Punjabi or a Sikh is shown in a Bollywood movie, it's literally the three same things. They show a shot of Golden Temple, and then they show someone praying, or they show like someone doing bhangra, or they show the fields, and then the guy's really loud, abrasive, and then he likes fighting, like drinking or doing bhangra or something. Is that all we're reduced to? Really?
कुछ लोग की जेड़ा कहंदे ने पंजाबी थोड़ी बदतमीज जी ज़बान लगदी है
नहीं पंजाबी बदतमीजी की ज़बान लगदी है क्यों लगदी कुछ जेड़े ना वो बोलो तो अज लगा बड़े दुख जाके बोले ने मगर जेड़ा अफगान जे कहंदा सी कहने ठहर जा मैं तन दसनी आके मैं आया मैं कहीं फलानी ज़बान देना आके
नहीं मगर ओ So what is Punjab? What are some misconceptions that people have of Punjabi people? How are Punjabis portrayed in the media? What's the difference between the Pakistani side of Punjab and the Indian side? So today we'll be discussing everything about Punjab, or at least as much as we can. It's a very interesting region where I happen to be from, and hopefully we'll learn a thing or two. I know I learned a lot from the research that I took for this particular episode. So today's guest is our first non-Pakistani guest. Ramsingh is his name. He lives in Canada, and he's of Indian descent. Specifically, Ramsingh is Punjabi, and you'll soon find out that he identifies very closely with Punjab as a region, as an ethnicity, culture, language. He loves Punjab. And that's why I brought him on for this session. Ramsingh's knowledge of Punjab is far greater than mine. Because of this, he's actually quite involved with our online Pakistani community. Were you born in India?
No, I'm not from India at all, actually. I'm from Canada. My background, I consider myself to be Canadian, and the only thing that really ties me to India is city.
Your parents?
Yeah. Well, that and my parents, because my parents, they're a bit more into the culture and all that, whereas I focus more on the religious aspect. There's somewhat of a dichotomy for me.
Mm-hmm. So have you ever gone to India at all?
Yeah, I've actually been 6-7 times, but it's been a long time since I've been now.
Which part of India are you from?
Well, it's kind of hard to say because my ancestors, they aren't really from India. They're from the Northwest Frontier Province, or as it's known nowadays as KPK in Pakistan. And during partition, they had to move. And first, they went to Patiala, which was in Punjab, and then they eventually landed on New Delhi. But I have family in Punjab as well.
Right. Makes sense. Oh, yeah. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 23.
23, okay. What do you do? Are you in school? You study?
Yeah, I go to school. I'm currently completing my political science degree, and I will be going to law school in the future.
That's cool. So you also have a knack for history. You like this particular topic, for example. You seem to have some knowledge about, or at least some interest in Punjab as a culture and Punjab as a heritage as well.
Yes, 100%. I don't focus on like Indian culture as a whole or anything because I feel like the regional cultures are what really bring out the flavor, in my opinion. That's where the heart of the culture lies for me, and I feel like my relation to Punjab is very strong, and I identify with it very strongly.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you identify more with being Punjabi than being of Indian descent.
Exactly.
Can you speak Punjabi?
Yes, 100%. I can speak it very fluently, and I feel like people are surprised when they see me speaking Punjabi. They find it kind of odd.
Especially not being born in Punjab, right? How did you learn?
Yeah, my parents and grandparents. When I first started going to school, apparently, my parents would tell me that I started picking up English more, but then they would correct me and tell me to speak in Punjabi instead, and I just learned that way. So I didn't really like lose the language at any point. I continue to speak it since I was born. Yeah, aren't you Punjabi as well?
Yeah, man, I'm Punjabi. Like, I know
Oh,
Punjabi. I can
that's
speak it as well. I can speak it relatively okay.
which region are you from?
I was born in Lahore.
Oh, so okay, do you speak the Majail dialect?
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Apparently. But you know what's interesting is I did some research on the internet prior to this podcast episode, and what I found is that Majai dialect that you were just referring to is
Hmm?
what is called in India. In Pakistan, apparently, it's just called the standard Punjabi dialect.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense because I had actually asked my parents about this
Hmm.
and some family members. I was like, Wikipedia mentions that our dialect is this because Punjabi does have so many dialects, right? So, just to tap into some other knowledge besides Ramsingh and to add some spoken Punjabi to this episode, I decided to call the two Punjabis that I know my Ammi and Abu. So, I called them to ask them about Punjabi accents and see what they have to say. I always enjoy my mom and dad's folk stories and history lessons, which I wasn't directly part of growing up. Go ahead and listen to my mom and dad's impressions of these various Punjabi dialects if you're interested. If you don't understand it, just go ahead and skip the next 5 minutes or so. So, first, I'll go ahead and call my mom.
हेलो
हेलो हाँ जी
हाँ जी
अस्सलाम ਕੀ ਹਾਲ ਹੈ
वालेकुम सलाम अल्लाह का शुक्र
5 ਮਿੰਟ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ
हाँ
ਅੱਛਾ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਣਾ ਸੀ ਉਸ ਦਿਨ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਲਹਿਜਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ
पंजाबी लहजे हैं
ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਪੁੱਛਣਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ
हाँ
ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਲਹਿਜਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲਹਿਜੇ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਜ਼ਰਾ
चांदे के पता है एक लाहौरी है एक पटवारी है एक मुल्तानी है
ਹਾਂ
एक अपना सियालकोटी है बस ये चार पांच दी पता है बाकी होर चकवाल दी ते पटवार दी तकरीबन मिलदी जुलदी है पटवार जरा बहुती माड़ा की ढाला की करदे ने
ਹੂੰ
पटवारी गुजर खान दे पिंडी दे बंदे चकवाल दे जरा असा तुसा कहंदे रहंदे ने तू किदा चलिया तू किदा वईया असा दी बोली है
ਇਹ ਚਕਵਾਲ ਦੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਟਵਾਰੀ ਜਿਸ ਨਾਲ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਨੇ
चकवाल दे आ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਪਟਵਾਰੀ ਕਰਵਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਉਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਪਟਵਾਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ
ਉਹ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਨੇ
ਗੁਜਰ
ਮਤਲਬ
ਖਾਨ ਦੀ।
ਉਹ ਹੈਗਾ ਵਾ ਉਹ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਵਾ
ਹਾਂ
ਪਿਆ ਵਾ
ਤੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਚੱਲਿਆ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਚੱਲਿਆ ਕਿਸ ਲੈ ਆਸੇ ਹਲਾ ਖਿੱਚ ਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਖਿੱਚ ਲੈ
ਇਹਦਾ ਕੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ
ਖਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਛਿੱਕ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਹਲਾ ਛਿੱਕ ਕਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਛਿੱਕ ਅਸਾਂ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਨੇ
ਅੱਛਾ
ਹਾਂ
ਅੱਛਾ ਅੱਛਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਹੋਰ ਲਹਿਜੇ ਵੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਲਿਖੇ ਨੇ ਮਲੋਰੀ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਉਹ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਮਜਹੀ ਇਹ ਪਰ ਕਦੀ ਨਾਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ
ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ
ਫਿਰ ਹਿੰਦਕੋ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੈ ਹਿੰਦਕੋ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਲੋਕੀ ਲਹਿਜਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ
ਪਿਸ਼ਾਵਰ ਦੀ
ਹਾਂ
ਪਿਸ਼ਾਵਰ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹਾਂ
ਕੁਛ ਲੋਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਲਹਿਜਾ ਕੁਛ ਲੋਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਹੈ
ਹਾਂ ਹਿੰਦਕੋ ਪਿਸ਼ਾਵਰ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਪਠਾਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬੋਲੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਹਿ ਪੁੱਛਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਪੈਰ ਰੱਖੇ ਹੀ
ਅੱਛਾ
ਹਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਤੂੰ ਬਹਿ ਵਾਂ ਆਰਾਮ ਨਾਲ ਤੂੰ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਚੱਲੇ ਆ ਕਹਿ ਰੱਖੇ ਹੀ ਪੁੱਛਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਪੈਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਤੰਗ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ
ਹਾਂ
ਕਹਿ ਪੁੱਛਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਪੈਰ ਰੱਖੇ ਹੀ
ਅੱਛਾ
ਉਹ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਨੇ
ਅੱਛਾ ਫਿਰ ਕੁਛ ਹੋਰ ਲਿਖੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਚੰਗਵੀ ਤੇ ਜੰਗਲੀ ਥਲੋਚੀ ਜਾਫਰੀ
ਅੱਛਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਪਟਵਾਰੀ ਗੁਜਰ ਖਾਨ ਪਿੰਡੀ ਦੀ ਹੈ ਚਕਵਾਲ ਦੀ ਹੈ ਸੌਰ ਦੀ ਹੈ ਸਿਆਲਕੋਟ ਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਮੁਲਤਾਨੀ ਹੈ ਬਸ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਕੋਈ ਬੋਲਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਹੋਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਮੁਲਤਾਨ ਦਾ ਸਿਆਲਕੋਟ ਦਾ
ਹਾਂ
ਗੁਜਰਾਤ ਦਾ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਮਿੱਠੀ ਬੋਲੀ ਗੁਜਰਾਤ ਦੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਹੈ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ
ਗੁਜਰਾਤ ਦੀ
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਬੜੀ ਮਿੱਠੀ ਹੈ
ਅੱਛਾ
ਗੁਜਰਾਤ ਦੀ
ਅੱਛਾ ਅੱਛਾ After my mom, I called my dad. He didn't pick up at first, but a minute later, he called me back. I have the Mr. Grinch ringtone set up for him, and that got caught in the recording too.
Cactus, you're as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch. You're a bad banana.
My dad's not like the Grinch at all. He's actually really festive and upbeat. I just like to mess with him. Hello?
हेलो अहमद तेरा फोन आया थे
हाँ जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम, ਕੀ ਹਾਲ ਹੈ?
वालेकुम की हाल चाल है ठीक ठाक
ਹਾਂ ਬਸ ਠੀਕ ਠਾਕ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੁੱਛਣਾ ਸੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ
ਹਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕੀ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ
ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਬੜੇ ਲਹਿਜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਸੀ ਇਹਨੇ ਲਹਿਜਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਪਟਵਾਰੀ ਤੇ ਹਿੰਦਕੋ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਸਾਰੇ ਲਹਿਜਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ
ਲਹਿਜਾ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਹਾਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੂਰ ਜਾਓ ਤਾਂ ਲਹਿਜਾ ਬਦਲ ਜਾਂਦਾ
ਹਾਂ
ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੇਨ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਜ਼ਬਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚਾਰ ਨੇ
ਹਾਂ
ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਪਸ਼ਤੋ ਬਲੋਚੀ ਤੇ ਸਿੰਧੀ
ਅੱਛਾ
ਪਸ਼ਤੋ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਮਿਲਾ ਕੇ ਨਾ ਹਿੰਦੂਕੋ ਬਣੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਉਹ ਪਿਸ਼ਾਵਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੋਲੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ
ਹਾਂ ਹਿੰਦਕੋ ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਉਹ ਹਿੰਦੂਕੋ ਪਿਸ਼ਾਵਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੋਲੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜਿਹਦਾ ਹੈ ਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਹੈ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਲਹਿਜਾ ਫਰਕ ਹੈ
ਹੂੰ
ਮਤਲਬ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਵਾਬ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਹੋ ਜਾਓ
ਹਾਂ
ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੱਠੀ ਕਰ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਹੋ ਜਾਓ ਬਸ ਇਹ ਜਾਉਂਦੇ ਨਾ ਬੰਦੇ
ਹਾਂ
ਮੱਠੀ ਕਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ
ਅੱਛਾ
ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਰੋਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰੋਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਟਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ
ਰੋਟਾ
ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਜੀ ਆਹ ਰੋਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ
ਹਾਂ
ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰੋਟਾ
ਅੱਛਾ
ਪਠਵਾਰੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਪਠਵਾਰ ਉਧਰ ਇਲਾਕਾ ਉਧਰ ਉੱਤੇ ਦਰਿਆ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਨਾ ਪਠਵਾਰ ਦਾ ਇਲਾਕਾ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਰੇਗਿਸਤਾਨ ਹੈਗਾ
ਅੱਛਾ
ਤੇ ਉਹ ਪਠਵਾਰ ਦਾ ਇਲਾਕਾ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਹੈ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਮਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ
ਹਾਂ
ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ
My dad had a little bit more to say, but let's go ahead and go back to Ramsingh for now. There's a few that Pakistanis identify with. One is like Patwari.
Yeah, Patwari.
Yeah, and it's spoken actually pretty widely in Pakistan. As far as I know, it's so aggressive, it's so intense that you won't. I can't understand most of it.
Yeah, it's very popular actually around the Kashmir region, the Azad Kashmir region. That's where they have a lot of it since it's more in the hilly area. It's also called Pahari sometimes.
Pahari. Oh, like mountains. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
The dialects are really interesting because first of all, I don't know much about them, but there's one example. There's a dialect called Hindko. I don't know if you've heard of that, Hindko.
Yes, that is the language that I speak. Since my parents or my ancestors, right, they were from near Peshawar actually, and that's where Hindko is spoken. The people there, the Hindu people or the non-Muslim people, they were called Hindkis, which meant that they were from Hind, but they're ethnically Punjabi, and they didn't really mix in with the Pashtun population there. They kind of retained their own identity, and they spoke Hindko. Yeah, it was really cool.
Wow. Yeah, well, I knew one person at least that spoke Hindko, and they were Muslim.
Well, I mean that's like before the partition and all that, but like it was the kind of language identity of the region, and I guess it passed on, which is good to hear.
Right. What confuses me is oftentimes those dialects like Hindko. I've been told they can be considered languages of their own, separate from Punjabi.
Yeah,
so that's always been a bit confusing to me.
That and Saraiki, which is in the southern area in Pakistan, they're both considered separate languages in Pakistan now. I think there were language movements to kind of separate them because they don't really like being considered, I guess, under the Punjabi hegemony, if you like to call it. Like, if you think of Punjabi, right, you would think of probably somewhere in Lahore, but then since they're so disconnected from that region, they find that they don't really have much overlap anymore, so they've kind of made their own language further, and they've kind of furthered the culture as well.
Yeah. It always blows my mind because for a language that's not like one of the top 10 languages in the world, it's so complex. I think Punjabi has such a complex history and diaspora.
Wait, it's the 10th. It's the 10th most spoken language in the world, I think.
Oh, it's exactly number 10?
Yeah, it's the 10th most now, which is kind of crazy.
If you compare Punjabi to languages like even Urdu, Hindi, which are more widely spoken, right? Those don't have the complexity in terms of, different dialects, just like a mile down, a few kilometers down from your village, the dialect might completely change to something you might not be able to understand. There's other top languages like French and Spanish, and as I understand, they have some differences.
Yeah, exactly.
Punjabi, for such a closely knit together region, it's surprisingly so broad.
Yeah, I think that because Punjab as a region itself, it's so geographically diverse. Like you have mountains in the north, you have the grasslands and the plains and Madhya, what we would call, and then you have like the arid desert near Rajasthan. It's just there's so many different
Yeah.
variants, and they all evolved so drastically differently from each other that I guess it was a necessity for them to develop their own kind of pigeon, if you'd like to call it. So Punjab basically started during the Indus Valley civilization, and it was one of the hotbeds for actually the entire place because it was right on the Indus River, which is one of the major flowing rivers in the Punjab region. And from there on, it grew. Even though that civilization died, we saw a bunch of invaders come in. Like we saw Alexander the Great, and then we saw the Turks, and then we saw the Persians, we saw the Afghans, and then we even saw the British. So it's been kind of a hotbed for all the people invading into the subcontinent. And
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons why it's been very, very drastic to change. I'd say it's a very adaptable region. And at the center of it all are the five rivers. So being Ravi, Chenab, Jhelum, Satluj, and Beas. And that makes it very, very prime location for agriculture. So most of the people in the region would be farmers. And I think that's one of the best reasons that each country really profits off of their region because it's so industrious and it's so focused on outputting the best food products.
And then Punjab, you mentioned how it went through, all these different eras. And it's such an old civilization, I guess, from what you're describing.
Yeah, it is. Like first they had it was the Brahmin kings, not the Brahmin kings. The Hindu kings used to rule, and then eventually it turned into the Arabs tried to conquer, and after the Arabs came the Turks, and after the Turks, you had Islam come in, right? So
Right.
that's when you saw the establishment of all these Sufi shrines, and that's why Sufism is one of the most, I guess, popular means of religious beliefs in the Punjab region at this moment. Like, you don't see Qawwali anywhere else really sprout off.
I love this point that you made, actually. Sufism
Yeah.
is something that I find, I was surprised to learn that Sufism isn't necessarily just a branch of Islam. It's actually
Hmm.
something somewhat practiced by Sikhs as well.
And Hindus. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Punjabis in general seem to have the same respectable figures. Like, do you know about Bulle Shah?
Yeah, of course. He's one of our most renowned poets.
I was so surprised that Bulle Shah is not just revered by Muslims. He's kind of revered by people of all religions. And there's some history behind that as to like how he was involved with trying to protest against discrimination of various ethnic groups and whatnot. So for all those reasons, he's kind of a established high figure.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there's another really prominent figure here. Do you know of one Baba Farid?
I think the name is
Baba Farid, yeah. He's from Pakpatan, which is in Punjab, Pakistan. And he is very famous in Sufism and Sikhism. Like, we both revere him as like a very prominent saint.
interesting. How did that happen? Do you know the history of that? Like, how did Sufism kind of penetrate potentially all three religions and build a spot among all three of them? How did that happen?
Well, I mean, Sufism kind of came in right with the expansion of the Muslims from Iran and the Afghans. But the way that it made in was something called syncretism, which is where you take a religion and you kind of mishmash it with the other into creating something that's entirely a synthesis of both. And then it makes it,
Hmm.
I guess, palatable to both faiths in that regard. So when the Hindus came, they picked up some of their saints. Like, have you heard that Gwali O Lal Meri Pat?
Yeah, yeah, of course, very popular.
Julelal.
Yeah, Julelal Kalandar.
Yeah, Julelal is actually a river deity in Sindh. And he used to be a god revered by the people there, but he was picked up by Sufi saints and they made him like their bead, quote unquote. Therefore, he was revered and respected by both the Hindus and the Muslims. And that allowed some
Wow.
Hindus to eventually convert and become Sufis.
Wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of folk songs again shared by, folk stories too, like what's it called? Heer Ranja.
Ranja. Sasipunu.
Sasi Punnu, yeah, right. And again, I was really surprised at my ignorance of the Indian side of Punjab. I was like, oh, this is just something that, Muslim Punjabis like. Until very recently, I was surprised.
It's revered everywhere, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Like, if you talk to anyone from the other side, it seems like they're basically the same aside from maybe their faith. So it's not really too much of a difference, I find.
Right. And Punjab is more, Punjabi is more of a culture and an ethnicity, not so much a religion. Of course, it seems to have been heavily influenced by religions, but
yeah,
like
exactly.
You said, they've kind of changed meanings over time, like Jule Lal, that example you gave. That's really interesting.
Yeah, the syncretism is kind of how it changed everything. But then, of course, with the arrival of Sikhism, it kind of threw a wrench into everything, where I guess everyone just kind of had to deal with this new religion. That it made it really interesting in a sense, I would say, because it wasn't really anything that other regions in India had seen before, since they have had like Buddhism or Jainism to a smaller extent, but they never really had like a third religion gain such prominence. And I guess that's what influenced Punjab a lot. Like in the later years after Sufism, I would say Sikhism had a massive impact.
Yeah, right. Are you a Sikh or are you Hindu?
No, I'm Sikh.
You're Sikh. Okay. So you mentioned how Sikhism had a huge impact on Punjabi culture in general. And I do see that actually. But maybe you can kind of give a few examples. How did Punjabi culture change before and after Sikhism?
I could do one on the Pakistani side versus the Indian side. So on the Pakistani side, is it true that you guys have a lot of hookah culture?
Yeah.
Yeah. But in the Indian side, there's nothing like that because hookah and specifically tobacco is prohibited in Sikhism. And that kind of started to apply to everyone. Hookah is very frowned upon by Sikhs, especially, and it became the norm in Punjab.
Wow, I did not know that. Okay. What about drinking?
Yeah. Drinking, it's a lot more normalized in comparison to the Pakistani side, I would say.
Yeah. Right. But is it actually forbidden in Sikhism as well?
Yeah, it's forbidden, but it's a complicated topic. Like it depends on how religious you are and how much you followed the Ahet, which is, I guess, the code of conduct that Sikhs must abide by. So
yeah, right. I think there's plenty of drinking in Pakistan as well. It depends on the places and the people you hang out with.
Is it a lot more hidden?
It's very hidden. It's very taboo.
Yeah, of course.
Because it takes me back to a time when I knew this Indian guy at my job, and he was actually Punjabi. I'm not sure about his religion, but he basically mentioned he was talking about just partying and drinking alcohol in general. He just said, "I'm from a part of India that drinks a lot. We're very famous for drinking." So I asked him, "Which part is that?" And he said, Punjab. I was like, really? because in Pakistan, it's all the same. Drinking is frowned upon no matter which region you go to.
Yeah.
It's very interesting you pointed out that hookah and smoking is...
It's a big no-no. Yeah, it's kind of crazy actually how they diverge. Like, if you went to a random Punjabi and you asked them, hey, do you want to go get a drink? They would have been like, sure, why not? But if you said, you want to go maybe to a hookah bar, they'd be like, what are you, crazy?
Yeah, right. That makes sense. Are there more subtle differences that you're aware of between Pakistani Punjab and Indian Punjab?
Yeah, I'd say that since there's a lot more Hindus in India, we definitely focus a lot more on the vegetarian food, whereas I guess Pakistani, you guys still eat a lot of
Yeah.
meat. I
Ton
mean,
of-
we
ton
do
of
as
meat, yeah.
well, but like Sikhs do eat meat a lot, but I guess it's more the Hindus that try to shy away from that. But the tandoori chicken is something that we both can enjoy.
Yeah. In California, when I used to live there was a Punjabi shop, like just kind of a run of the mill shack where you could buy food. And
Yeah.
we used to buy food from there a lot of the times. And it was all vegetarian. It was Punjabi, you could tell.
Oh, what?
But it was all vegetarian. I wasn't sure if those guys were Sikhs or Hindus, but either way, the food was just so delicious.
Yeah.
That's when I realized that Punjab has its own style of cooking food as well.
Exactly.
And I didn't realize that before. Like India, India is a pretty big country. It's very diverse. So you can change regions and the food completely changes as well. And Pakistan has that, but not to such a
degree. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But they had items like like the typical saag with
Makki di
roti.
roti.
Yeah, makki di roti, and they had bangan and
lassi.
Yeah, chole, lassi. Yeah, they're like really good items, and it was like, wow, this is the vegetarian aspects of it, the vegetables and the styles of cooking are very similar. So it felt like home.
Yeah, exactly. Like one thing that I do miss is like I want to try stuff like halim, but that's not really something my parents have cooked before. But I would really enjoy something like that.
Yeah, halim is the best of both. You get the meat,
really?
You get the dal. It's like protein heaven.
Great for the gym bros like me.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's good. I mean, that's slight differences between Pakistani Punjab and Indian Punjab, but I think the similarities
they outweigh it.
Yeah,
the
similarities are a lot bigger. Yeah,
like we both have a high regard for our music. Like if you go to any part of Punjab, east or west, if you ask who Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan is, everyone will be like, "Oh yeah, he's amazing. He's a legend."
Right. I mean, there's a lot of Bollywood elements like Punjabi movies that my family has seen and really enjoyed just because of the similarities to the things that Pakistanis identify with as well. One example is my mom really loved this movie called Waris Shah. Well, it was based on Waris Shah, right?
Oh yeah, exactly.
It's like 10, I think 15 years old.
Yeah, Gurdas man, he's a legend. And
yeah, right. Good singer, really good singer.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. As I said, since I'm a Sikh, there's a lot of pilgrimage going to Pakistan since one of the holiest sites in Sikhi is within Pakistan. It's called Nankana Sahib. That's where Guru Nanak Dev Ji, our first guru, was born. And around every year, this time, there's a lot of visitors going to Pakistan to visit and take pilgrimage. And it's all taken care of by the Pakistani government. And we haven't really felt any difference. It's all the same. Every pilgrim that comes back, they said they loved it, and it's just like home.
I wanted to pause here and add one more thing that my dad said on the phone call to me. He added a little tidbit about how Imran Khan recently agreed to a new corridor that would allow Sikhs to come across the Indian border from India to Pakistan just a few miles in order to see one of their holiest sites, the resting place of Sikhism's founder, Guru Nanak Dev. Previously, there were a few Sikhs coming in every year for this pilgrimage, but not to the scale that this corridor would allow.
ਸਿੱਖ ਵੀ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਆਇਆ ਸਨ
ਹਾਂ
ਉਹ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਬਾਰਡਰ ਦੇ 40 ਮੀਲ ਦੇ ਫਾਸਲੇ ਤੇ
ਅੱਛਾ ਹਾਂ
ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨੇ ਇਮਰਾਨ ਖਾਨ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਕੋਰੀਡੋਰ ਇੱਕ ਬਣਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ
ਹਾਂ
40 ਮੀਲ ਦਾ ਫਾਸਲਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਬਾਰਡਰ ਤੋਂ ਡੇਰਾ ਬਾਬਾ ਨਾਨਕ ਗਿਆ ਉਹ ਕੋਰੀਡੋਰ ਸਿੱਖ ਇੰਨੇ ਖੁਸ਼ ਨੇ ਦੀ ਹੱਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੱਥ ਚੁੰਮਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਇਮਰਾਨ ਖਾਨ ਦੇ
ਹਾਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਇੰਨੀ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਈ ਸੀ ਹੁਣ ਪੂਰੀ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਦੇ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਉਹਨੇ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਦੇ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਉਹ ਕੋਰੀਡੋਰ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਤਾਂ ਜੀ ਖੁੱਲੇ ਆਓ ਜਾਓ ਕਿਸੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਆਓ ਜੀ ਕੋਈ ਵੀਜ਼ਾ ਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਨਹੀਂ
ਚੰਗਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਬਲਕਿ ਥੋੜੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਹਮਦਰਦੀ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ
ਹਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਰਸਤਾ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਤਾਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਰਸਤਾ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਤਾਂ ਜਾਣ ਦਾ ਅੱਗੇ ਕਿ ਦੂਸਰਾ ਟਿਕਾਣ ਨਾ
ਹਾਂ ਚਲੋ ਚੰਗਾ
ਬਣਾਇਆ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਅੱਛੇ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਨਾ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਾ ਕੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਉਹ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਖਾਨਾ ਕਾਬਾ ਹੈ
ਹਾਂ
ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇਮਰਾਨ ਖਾਨ ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗਾ ਕਿ ਅਗਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਰਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਖਾਨਾ ਕਾਬਾ ਜਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਕਿਉਂ ਆਇਆ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਖਾਨਾ ਕਾਬਾ ਜਾਈਏ ਤੇ 40 ਦੂਰ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਅੱਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਬਸ ਇੱਥੇ ਖਾਣਾ ਖਾਵਾ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ
ਹਾਂ
ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਤਕਲੀਫ ਹੋਵੇ ਤੇ
ਸਹੀ ਗੱਲ
ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਖਾਣਾ ਖਾਵਾਂ ਭਾਈ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ
ਹਾਂ
This is now a joint decision from both Pakistan and India to allow this safe pilgrimage for Sikhs, and the corridor is expected to be completed in about 6 months. My dad made a really good point, which I wanted to translate to our English audience. The fact that this holy site is just a few miles from the Pakistan-India border and has been a point separating Sikhs from their pilgrimage for nearly 70 years. A few of them have been able to come, of course, throughout the years, but the majority couldn't. Now back to Ramsingh.
So Ramsingh, what would you say Punjab, the way it's being affected by things like globalism, what do you think is the future of Punjab?
That's something that I'm struggling with at the moment because you see, when we go out to the diaspora, we're already more inclined to speak another language. But if you see other Pakistanis or other Indians, you're going to be more inclined not to speak your language, your home mother tongue, but you're going to speak in Urdu or Hindi. You're going to be more inclined to do that. And I feel like you may lose a bit of your culture in that way, which is somewhat of a shame in my opinion, but I feel like the emphasis should be to keep our language alive, and in order to maintain that we have to speak it to our kids, our family, and we can't really let it die, otherwise we lose a part of our culture.
Yeah, I don't know if there's the same perception exists on the Indian side, but on the Pakistani side we have this impression by a lot of people, not by everybody but by many, that Punjabi is kind of a badtameez language, like it's a rude tongue.
Really?
We have
Why?
that, yeah.
That seems a bit odd. How can a language be rude?
So this is the last tidbit for my phone call with my mom and dad. I just wanted to put this in here. I actually asked them both this question. Why is Punjabi sometimes considered unprofessional or rude or basically badtameez? So first I spoke to my mom.
ਕੁਝ ਲੋਕੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਸਾਡੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਕੁੜੀਆਂ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਥੋੜੀ ਬਦਤਮੀਜ਼ ਜੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਹੈ
ਨਹੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬਦਤਮੀਜ਼ੀ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਹੈ
ਕਿਉਂ ਲੱਗਦੀ
ਕੁਝ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਬੋਲੋ ਤਾਂ ਅਜੇ ਲੱਗਾ ਬੜੇ ਦੁੱਖਾ ਕੇ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਨੇ
ਹਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਗਰ ਅਗਰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ੇਰੋ ਸ਼ਾਇਰੀ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ ਇੱਕ ਜ਼ਮਾਨੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੜੀ ਮਿੱਠੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਸਮਝੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਸੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਸ਼ੇਰੋ ਸ਼ਾਇਰੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਉਰਦੂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਸੀ ਉਰਦੂ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ
ਹਾਂ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸ਼ੇਰੋ ਸ਼ਾਇਰੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਬੜੇ ਚੁਣ ਕੇ ਅਲਫਾਜ਼ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਬੇਹੂਦਾ ਅਲਫਾਜ਼ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਬੇਹੂਦਾ ਅਲਫਾਜ਼ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਆਮ ਨੋਰਮਲ ਲਾਈਫ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਬਾਜ਼ਾਰ ਥਲੇ ਬੈਣੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਇਸਤੇਮਾਲ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਮ ਨਫਸਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਠਹਿਰ ਜਾ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਣੀ ਆ ਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਆਇਆ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਫਲਾਣੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਦੇਣਾ ਆ ਕੇ
ਨਹੀਂ ਮਗਰ ਉਹ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਬੰਦੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਤੇ ਡਿਪੈਂਡ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ
ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸ਼ਾਇਰੀ ਚ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਤੇ ਬੜੇ ਚੁਣ ਕੇ ਅਲਫਾਜ਼ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਬੜੇ ਨਫਾਸਤ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਾਦਾ ਅਲਫਾਜ਼ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਚ ਕੋਈ ਬੋਲੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ
ਹਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਗਰ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਤੇ ਸਮਝ ਲਓ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਬਣ ਗਏ ਨੇ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਦਾ ਕਸੂਰ ਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਤੇ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ
ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਕਸੂਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਤੇ ਹੈ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਅਲਫਾਜ਼ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਲੋਕੀ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਲਿਖ ਕੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਜ਼ਰਾ ਮਾਡਰਨ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਨਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਕਸੂਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਤੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ
And then I spoke to my dad. Here's what he had to say.
ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕਈ ਲੋਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੜੀ ਬਦਤਮੀਜ਼ੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਹੈ ਮਤਲਬ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਅੱਛਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਇਹਦੀ ਕੀ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਹੈ
ਬਦਤਮੀਜ਼ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹ ਵੈਸੇ ਗਲਤ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਬਦਤਮੀਜ਼ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਬੜੀ ਲੱਗੀ ਹੈ ਸੁਲਝੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਹੈ
Basically, to summarize, my mom somewhat supported this notion of this idea of Punjabi being badtameez. But she agreed after I probed her a little bit that it's not the language at fault, but certain environments that make it seem that way. My dad, on the other hand, he outright denied it. He outright rejected this claim of Punjabi being anywhere near unprofessional or badtameez. Let's go back to Ramsingh now.
Exactly, yeah. In my own family, we have... So we're a Punjabi family, right?
Yeah.
But I've noticed that the girls, the females, and the kids prefer to speak Urdu. And the guys and the elderly folk, they prefer to speak Punjabi. And when asked, I've heard this several times that Punjabi sounds a bit rude, it sounds unprofessional, acha nahi lagta.
Wow, that's
so this is completely alien to you, huh?
I mean, you hear that type of stuff from people who aren't really from the Punjab region, But nowadays there is a strong push for Punjabi. Like if you see the content that most people in India consume, Punjabi songs are at the top, and
Oh
everyone
yeah.
falling in love with Punjabi shows and Punjabi movies. It's making a bit of a revival, but Punjabi never really went away, I think, the degree that it did in other areas. So I feel like that's a bit disheartening, but I mean, you can change the perception. You can bring back the poetry because I feel like if you read the poetry of the past, like how you were saying before, Waris Shah, Bulle Shah, Baba Farid,
Right.
they have such a strong literary tradition. Punjabi was preferred as a language for poets in the past, and seeing that
Hmm.
die seems a bit weird to me.
Fully agree with you. I feel like it has a depth that maybe even the surrounding languages don't really share oftentimes. And maybe it
Yeah.
goes back to just how old Punjabi is, but yeah, it has that literary depth that seems to be missing now.
Yeah, I think they might be replaced with more Urdu words as loan words, which is weird to see.
More Urdu, more English, even.
Yeah, that's true.
You'll notice even the songs are now like maybe some songs from Yo Yo Honey Sing. There'll be a
Mhm.
lot of like substitutions going on. Oh, tu meri baby,
Exactly.
you know, like there's just a lot of like
I think
there's a
that's
lot
more
of
the
tampering
Bollywood.
going on.
Like, if you listen to Bollywood Punjabi songs, they have a lot more Hindi mixed in, which I find really irritating as a Punjabi speaker. But if you go to Punjab itself and you find the music industry there, it's almost purely in Punjabi, aside from the rap, I guess, which is whatever.
Right. I've actually noticed this actually. In one particular Bollywood movie,
Yeah.
this person was like, instead of saying, this person is going to run away,
Mhm.
I guess in typical Pakistani Punjabi would be like, "वो नस्दा पे है, वो नस जाएगा," right?
Yeah.
Lekin the way he said it was, "वो भागदा पे है, वो भागना जाए किथे."
Yeah.
And I don't know, is bog like bog comes from bog, I guess, and
Yeah, it's Bhag.
really part of the dictionary.
No, it's not. No, that's just them mixing in Hindi and Punjabi.
That's
If
what I
you
thought.
want to say, yeah, like we would say nathda pya or dodda pya, something like that. We wouldn't say
Right.
bhagda pya because that's just mixing two languages that don't really have any semblance
Yeah.
or reason to be mixed.
Yeah, so that kind of reinforces your point that there's a lot of mixing going on, and possibly just to help the wider audience understand Punjabi more.
Yeah, but I feel like it's hurting Punjabi itself because people are just gonna think that they're speaking Punjabi when they're just speaking a mishmash of Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi.
It's a very tonal language too. I didn't notice
Yeah,
that, but different tones of the same letters can completely change the meaning.
yeah,
We might have something like Sat Samundar Par,
yeah.
meaning like you across 7 oceans.
Mhm.
But if you say it in a certain tone, like bar, then it means mountains. Bar,
Yeah,
mountain,
Bahar or Bar.
bar. Yeah,
Like
you just
even if
forget
you
the H.
pronounce like when people say Lahore, it's not how it's said. It's Lord.
Lower. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a weird tone in there. It's not even just lower. It's like lower, lower.
yeah.
Yeah.
Got
Kasi
a little
lori, lori.
H. Yeah, Lori.
Yeah, like a silent H. Yeah, it's definitely a tonal language, and I think maybe the only big language that
Yeah.
that surpasses that is Chinese. I've heard is very, very
Mandarin
tonal.
is very tonal, but Punjabi
Yeah,
is probably one of the biggest tonal languages that exists to this day, which is kind of a good accomplishment for us. Like, yay us.
yeah, and it's not easy. I sometimes mess up the tones too, but
Did you ever say something so bad?
oh yeah, of course, my family makes fun of me all the time. Exactly. Like you and I think we can understand that many other languages, people who only speak one or two, like English, Hindi, Urdu,
Yeah.
Spanish, they won't really understand what it feels like to speak a tonal language. And so it almost doesn't even make sense from that perspective. And so to me, it didn't make sense until I figured out, wait, Punjabi is tonal.
Yeah.
So that was like a wake up call for me.
If you're slightly off, then you can change the entire meaning of a sentence. So watch out, guys.
On this note of you mentioning how like Punjab kind of fits in to the rest of India, are there any particular misconceptions or stereotypes that people have of Punjabis that should be cleared up?
Yeah. Yeah, there are a couple. Like, it's not like just because we're from Punjab it doesn't mean we all like to dance. We're not like bhangraing every like 2 seconds when something good happens in our lives. Like, that's just a common misconception. We have a very wide variety of personalities, so you shouldn't really just stereotype us that way. We're not all loud and abrasive. We can talk in a very calm manner. We can be very kind. And I think
Yeah.
this is a good stereotype. We're very big hearted. Like, whoever comes to us, they say Punjabi hospitality is probably one of the best known in the region. And in India, I guess, and Pakistan as well. Like, we treat you like you're one of our own if you come. Like, we feed you,
Mhm.
we basically give you all the amenities you need, and we don't make you feel like you're separate from us. One aspect I think is that people, they think that we're kind of too straightforward in a way. I don't know if you have that on your
Huh.
end, like that. Like, we like keep our emotions on our sleeve. Basically, that's what Punjabis are.
Mm.
And a lot of people think that that's bad. They think that we don't know how to quote unquote behave. We get too emotional or something. But I feel like that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Do you guys have that same stereotype?
We have, I guess, something. So, yeah. Well, basically, it's just like if somebody's feeling an emotion, then Punjabis will feel that same emotion like 10 times in
Yeah,
an instant. So they'll go from
basically.
super happy to super angry. That's the stereotype. And I can see some truth to it
Mhm.
based on people that I know. But, I think, at the end of the day, it is a stereotype. Not everybody is like that necessarily. Sometimes
Exactly.
I think the culture can be misconceived just because of the way the language is spoken. So it's naturally
Yes.
a very ambitious language, I think. So people often speak it loudly and it looks like we're fighting, but we're not.
It's very expressive. I remember when I was younger, my friends would come to my house and my parents would be having a normal conversation upstairs. They'd be like, "Are your
Mhm.
parents arguing with each other?" I'm like, "No, what the hell? They're talking."
Yeah, definitely true in my family. I mean, we've had white people come over and they get absolutely, they get traumatized by it. And then you have like Urdu speaking people come over and they understand it a little better, but they do think we're fighting all the time.
Yeah, I guess we do have the same stereotypes then.
Right. Yeah, it's more I think the style of the language and the style I guess of Punjabi people, like you mentioned being very hospitable. Oftentimes I think Punjabi people are very tight knit. They
Mhm.
like getting close to others and like you mentioned, like they'll basically treat a lot of people like family. So
Yeah.
you'll invite them over and they won't treat you like a guest oftentimes, which can sometimes feel rude. Like, oh man, this guy's just, stuffing me with food.
Yeah.
Um, this isn't right. They should just leave me alone and, treat me like a guest. But the idea is that many Punjabis just want you to like,
Feel at home. Yeah,
or feel at
exactly.
home. Yeah, exactly. So they have their own style of doing that. And
Mhm.
they can, I guess I kind of understand where people are coming from if they think that's a little problematic. but it's all like well intentioned. It's not being Punjabi myself. I can tell that
Yeah.
there's
It's not like we have any malicious intent. Oh, we're gonna stop them so they don't come back to our house.
exactly. I mean, on this, you mentioned earlier, like we're not doing Bhangra all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, that's one thing that's always bothered me personally, but I'm not sure how much it bothers Punjabis in India. The way, like certain Bollywood movies will show, like
No, it
like as soon as a Punjabi guy is shown in a Bollywood movie and he's clearly Punjabi, right?
Mhm.
Uh, either he's a Sikh, so he's wearing
Oh, turban, yeah.
a turban, so they make it pretty obvious that this person is Punjabi. And then
Mhm.
as soon as they show them on the camera, the music starts playing like dong, 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 dong,
I
dong.
know.
And then it's just like oh Paji, oh you're watching that Paji, and then just I'm just like come on man,
It's
we're
so
not all like
annoying.
that.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves with Bollywood. Every time a Punjabi or a Sikh is shown in a Bollywood movie, it's literally the three same things. They show a shot of Golden Temple, and then they show someone
Yeah.
praying, or they show like someone doing bhangra, or they show the fields, and then the guy's really loud, abrasive, and then he likes fighting and
Right.
like drinking or doing bhangra or something. And it's just
Yeah.
like, is that all we're reduced to? Really?
I know, right? I think it's unfair.
Yeah,
But
it is.
I felt like maybe it's an understanding that Bollywood has with the Punjabi region, and they kind of. I mean, I'm sure there's some. Again, there's no malicious intent there. It's just kind of like a light humor for them.
I guess so. But the funniest part is some of the most prominent families in Bollywood are like the Kapoors who come from Punjab themselves, right?
Mhm.
How can you, in your right mind, support these stereotypes of your own people that way? Just seems kind of
Oh
weird
yeah,
to me. Like, because, you
yeah,
know, Grishma, Ranbir, Randhir, all.
yeah. Rishi Kapoor.
Yeah, it's a huge
Yeah.
dynasty. And they're all from Punjab.
Yeah, right. And yet they haven't been able to tell their directors, like, hey guys, we can't do this every time.
Yeah.
In fact, they sometimes go along with it.
Like, take the same roles. Like, I've seen Rishi Kapoor play Sardar a couple times, and he plays in all those stereotypes. I'm like, what are you doing, man?
Right. He's one of my favorite actors, too.
Yeah, he's
I
great.
love him as an actor. He's a great actor, yeah.
But his
think-
son, sorry?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, his son, Ranbir Kapoor. I don't know if you watched this movie called Rocket Singh. I think that's one of the only places where they did, I guess, the Punjabi / Sikh role and a little justice, where it wasn't just like some guy obsessed with bhangra and fighting.
I haven't seen that movie. I have seen this other one, Urta Punjab. I thought that was an excellent movie. I loved it.
Yeah, that was an interesting movie.
Now, of course, it sheds light on some issues in Punjab, but it takes them seriously. Not like, hey, we're just going to do Bhangra all the time. So I think it was a really well done movie.
If you want to look at more movies, maybe I think you should look at the Punjabi regional cinema. It's actually becoming very popular in North India and Pakistan, and there's been showings a lot in the diaspora whenever a new film is released. So if you want to ever check that out, that would be really cool, and I feel like you could relate to it a bit better.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out because we have in Pakistan, I'm not sure if you're aware, we had a big movie industry which was predominantly Punjabi at that time in
Hollywood,
the 90s.
I think. That's what it was.
Well, it was just called Lollywood, actually.
Yeah,
back then.
yeah.
Yeah, but then what happened was the younger generations, including myself, we didn't like it much because it was the same formula over and over again. Like basically, it kind of reinforced all those stereotypes that people had of Punjabis in Pakistan.
Oh,
Like, a bunch of gang culture and like Pindu mentality. You know, this guy's wearing a dhoti and he's killing like 20 people. You know, and then he goes back to milking his cows and stuff. Like it's just like it was weird, really weird stuff. Yeah. And then recently, in the last 10 years, Pakistan's kind of the Urdu culture has taken over. So they've started doing movies and they've started doing them more professionally. There's a big change going on right now where Punjabi movies have just kind of gone away completely. And so Urdu is taking, and that's probably where the Indian Punjabi industry is taking over. They're probably doing it better.
I mean, they've taken a lot of inspiration from Bollywood movies. I mean, in terms of cinematography and professionalism, you see the Punjabi movies are a lot better than they used to be maybe 20, 30 years ago. And I think that they're almost as good as Bollywood movies now, which is, I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, but like, I think that in terms of storytelling and just overall production value, it's gone up a lot more. And I think that it's just good to see. And I feel like it's bridging the gap, I guess, that was there between Indian and Pakistani Punjabis, because I know that a lot of the Pakistani Punjabis I know enjoy these movies as well, and they can relate to them.
Right. Well, like you said, the culture is very similar. So I'm sure this will be well received on both sides. Yeah. Are there any specific impressions that the Indian side has of the Pakistani Punjab?
Not really. The only thing that we think is, okay, well, some of our religious centers are there, which is true. So we have to go there. And we think they were basically one people separated by two borders. I mean, that's the common belief. among most Punjabis in the diaspora and in India. What about you guys?
Yeah, well, like I said, I think it's we're well aware that the Indian side is there, and of course we
Mhm.
see that because we have a lot more exposure to Indian culture, it being the biggest country in the subcontinent. So we
Yeah.
kind of see the Punjabi influence on the Indian side. But then there's certain things like how far our history goes back together as
Mhm.
one people, and like how like revered figures like Bulleh Shah are common among not just the Muslim Punjabis but the other ones too. So those types of things are not widely, well, it's available to whoever wants to learn.
Yeah.
But since Punjabi isn't like a hot topic nowadays in terms of like all the various other things that people are busy with in their
Yeah.
personal lives and academic lives, it's a diminishing knowledge topic.
That's unfortunate to say the least, but I hope that as long as there's people like us who want to reconnect with our roots, then we can revive some of this culture and these practices that we have and hopefully keep them alive for the next generations.
Yeah, me too. I hope so.
Before we ended this episode, I asked Ramsingh to share something, a story, any story, that has to do with Punjab. And he decided to talk about Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and how this man, this Kawal, is a legend, not just in Pakistan, but outside of Pakistan as well. I really like this monologue from Ramsingh, and so I decided to include it in here. Enjoy.
So Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, he started out in Punjab and he was very prominent as a Qawwali singer, which is a Sufi devotional style of singing where one person goes on for a couple hours singing with accompanied by harmonium, tabla, and a couple of people clapping in him and providing support with vocals. So he started out with that and became really popular. And eventually he made his way onto the Indian side where he was approached for film songs and he did a lot of shows there. And there he got a lot into certain Hindi devotional songs or Hindu devotional songs, as well as he did some Sikh devotional songs as well, which is known as Kirtan. So he was invited to the UK actually by a Gurdwara and he performed there. Like him and his whole group, they performed Kirtan in the Gurdwara, and I found that that was really amazing. There were hymns from the Guru Granth Sahib, which is the holy book of the Sikhs, and he had his head covered, and so did all of his companions. And a lot of Sikhs went there, and apparently there was no room in the hall to set foot. That's how packed it got, and it was absolutely amazing. I loved it, and if anyone wants to see it, there's recordings on YouTube. And the crazy thing is, I went to search up Rahat Fateh Ali Khan, who obviously is related to Nusrat. He released a kirtan as well recently, and I've been listening to that, and it's very crazy to see because we Sikhs we put a lot of emphasis on Sikh devotional music because we believe that music is a way to connect further to the divine, and we use music as a way to connect to the words or the hymns. Therefore, when we see it being sung so beautifully, we appreciate it a lot. And that's why I have an immense amount of respect for Nusrat and Rahat for singing these hymns. And you can see the amount of dedication and love that they have for the singing style. And I think that's the basis of Qawwali itself, where you use your soul, you put your entire soul and your being into singing, and it comes out in a way that just completely touches people's hearts. And that's why I feel like he's inspired millions from everywhere around the world, not just India or Pakistan, but everybody. And that's something that I can completely relate to. And if anyone else wants to go listen to him, please go listen to him if you haven't, and appreciate this gem.
Dude, that was pretty good.
Thanks.
Yeah. No, this really opens my eyes. I think I need to pick up a book on, general Punjabi history.
I'm glad because I feel like Punjab is something that's really close to my heart. Even though at the beginning of the podcast I said that I don't really identify with India, I identify with Punjab more, which is
Mhm.
obviously because that's where I am from ethnically. But the Indian state, it hasn't really done anything for me. But the land of Punjab itself, there's a link there that I can never really erase.
Yeah, right. And you know what's amazing is the realization that if destiny was any different, if things had turned out any different in history,
Mhm.
then Punjab would be its own country right now.
It would have, like, it used to. It was never separated to this degree. Actually, there was only until
Mhm.
47. And the funny thing is that Punjab has always been one of the powerhouses within the subcontinent, and that's why it's dominating in Pakistan, and it has been dominating in India. So